Welcome back to Caps Hockey Review. Back again after a 3-game stretch. Western road trip, a couple games to talk about. Let's get to it. Caps Hockey Review, let's go. And off we go. Caps Hockey Review underway yet again. Western road trip for the Caps. I'm back with you after a 3-game stretch, like I said, so a little bit more to discuss today. Pretty good so far. On the whole, they have one more game against Seattle, making their one visit to Climate Pledge Arena this season. That will be later this evening. That will be part of the next video. 4 just seemed like a lot. I thought about just maybe doing one video for the whole Western road trip, but just seems like a lot to work in. Even 3 seems like, it might be a little much. So trying to stick with 2. We'll be seeing that, continue as we move along here. Anyway, talking hockey. The Caps, the Western road trip is always tough, whether it's the Western US or the Western Canada, because it's a long flight. Time change, you're going on a 3-hour difference. So these guys are hitting the ice at, 7:30 to start a game in LA when it's, 10:30 in their usual time zone, and they're ending games at about this time. And games are actually long, usually long over by then. So weird for the Caps. It's just kind of a tough thing. You have to adjust your body to the time change. You don't really have a lot of time. You travel one day and you're playing the next day. So really tough, I think, these trips can be. And they struggled a little bit in Anaheim. Still got a point out of it. Overtime loss, of course. Trevor Zegras for the Ducks. He stung the Caps. He had some great plays, had a couple, really nice goals. But for the Caps, what are we seeing continue? Well, we're seeing our regulars be out. Lars Eller announced on, I believe it was Tuesday, he is out in COVID protocol. So now we're down 5 forwards. This is getting wild. So the Caps, Brett Leeson stays in, of course, Protas, Janssen Fjallby. They all stay in, and bringing in Garrett Pillon now. It's just we're looking more and more like the Hershey Capitals, or I guess the Washington Bears, if you'd rather, day by day. So the thing here, and it's been a theme all year, it's got to be next man up mentality. We can't sit here and feel sorry for ourselves. We just have to find a way to win these hockey games. It didn't work out in Anaheim. And not that the Caps didn't play a good game when you consider, the time change, the travel. It's tough. So I think to get a point in Anaheim, and I said before the trip, if they go to the West Coast and pull out 8 points out of these 4 games, unbelievable. I did discuss, probably like a 6 out of 8, maybe you'll lose one in regulation or drop a couple in overtime. They are on track. If they can pull out this win against Seattle tonight, they'll pull 7 out of 8 points out of this road trip, which is huge. The Ducks are on kind of a resurgence. The Kings are on a resurgence. These are 2 really good teams they had to play on back-to-back nights to start this road trip, and they did extremely well. And I'll get to LA here shortly. But for the Ducks, I talked about it before the trip. This Ducks team is very good. They have a nice mix of, veteran experience, but they have a lot of youth. But the thing is, it's not like a bad thing, because their young players are ready. They are NHL ready, and they are dangerous. So this is a tough game if you're the Capitals. Getting off the travel, time change, you got to go out and play this young, fast team. It's it has the makings of maybe a bit of a stinker, but the Caps were able to respond well. The one thing I'll say we did see also against Anaheim is, and we've seen this kind of lately, and we saw it against LA, we saw it against San Jose. The second period for the Caps is where they're usually dominant, and it's usually where they do a lot of their damage. I think it's that long line change for other teams. The Caps really know how to take advantage of that, but we haven't seen that. I mean, they haven't scored a second period goal in these last 3 games, so it's a little different. I mean, it's kind of a departure from the usual, but they're finding ways, especially late in games, I feel, to find ways to score, to either, tie a game or to put a game away, which is hugely important. Again, they got behind in Anaheim. And I've talked about it before. They're such a different team when they score the first goal versus when they give up the first goal. When they score the first goal, they get off on the right foot, obviously, and I feel like it sets the table for everything they do. They can get in hard on the forecheck. They can grind you down. They can outplay on the wall and then work the puck to the middle of the ice, and your high danger chances are your high danger chances. So for the Caps, did not find a way to score a goal until the third period in this Anaheim game. Garrett Pillon with his first NHL goal. It's been a season of milestones, a lot of first goals, a lot of first points, some milestone passers, whatever we want to talk about, but the big thing continues. They're continuing to play well regardless of who's in the lineup. Would you like to see it be a little bit better? Sure, but you have all these young guys coming in. They teach them the system in rookie camp and development camp. They teach them the system in Hershey. They actually play the same system the Caps do, but it's always a bit of a learning curve. You're doing it against, better players, faster players, bigger players, however you want to go. Bigger, maybe not necessarily, but guys who've been doing it for a long time. When you're a 21, 22-year-old kid basically stepping into the NHL, you're playing against, grown men. And I talked about this with Hendrix Lapierre and why he may not be quite ready for the NHL. As a young kid, you've got no experience, and you're stepping in here against guys who've been doing it for 10 years. I mean, it's just a different animal than the AHL. So there always is a bit of a learning curve. The Caps and the Bears obviously do a really good job preparing their young guys for this, but there's no substitute for experience in that matter. So I think the Caps have done a really good job with getting their young guys involved, and their young guys are producing. I mean, Martin Ferravari, I keep talking about him too, and maybe not quite enough. I've been focusing on a lot of the forwards, the rookies this year, but Ferravari's been great. He's been playing top pair all season with John Carlson. He's been seeing a lot of ice time, and he's responded. I mean, his plus minus is great. He's blocking a lot of shots, he's throwing some hits, and he's getting on the score sheet. We viewed him as more of a defensive defenseman or a stay-at-home defenseman, but he's putting up some goals. I think he had 2 assists in the Anaheim game, so the guy's finding his way onto the sheet too. I mean, I think, once we, get further along, we're going to see him as more of a two-way defenseman, kind of like a John Carlson. It's really early, but could this potentially be the guy that kind of, when Carlson is done, could this be the next guy that is the cornerstone of your defense? Is he going to be your ice time leader? Very possibly. Very, very possibly. So, big things, great things from Martin Ferravari. Let's hope he keeps her going. Looking good. Vitek Vanacek would get the start. The carousel keeps turning for the Caps and net. Kind of a victim of, some sloppy play early in front of him, and it happens as a goalie. I mean, sometimes it just doesn't work out. He played well. I'm not going to sit here and say he didn't play well. There was certainly, just some moments where maybe didn't look as entirely comfortable as he should have, but again, not entirely his fault. He actually played a pretty good game. I think he's been on a trajectory as just solid. He doesn't really have a lot of bad games. I wouldn't say, I mean, we haven't seen him have a shutout yet, so he's not really having those great performances, but he's keeping the Caps in games, and he's giving them chances to win, which is what you want out of your goalie. We'd just like to see it, if it's me, I want to see it just be a little stronger. I'd like to see that save percentage come up a little bit, that GAA come down, and the shutout number go up a little bit for him. He's been working extremely hard, and he's had some shutouts spoiled at the end of games. So I think for him, it's just a matter of keeping on. So moving forward to LA, this was the tough part. This was the part of this road trip where I was like, okay, if they're going to lose, it's going to be in LA, because you're on the second half of a back-to-back, and the LA Kings are no joke this year. Again, same story with the Ducks. They have, that veteran experience, some holdovers from the Stanley Cup days. Anze Kopitar, Dustin Brown, Drew Doughty. Drew Doughty was not in the lineup for these games, which, whatever. I mean, the Caps could use maybe a bit of a break. They're missing so many guys. It helps a little bit maybe that Doughty was out. Maybe not. Who knows? Anyway, and Jonathan Quick. I mean, he's really struggled these last few years, but he seems to have kind of refound his form from those Stanley Cup days. So really good things from the Kings so far this season. They're actually a threat in that Pacific Division, which is really nice to see. Kind of a changing of the guard a little bit over there. This game was just back and forth. I mean, we didn't see a ton of chances either way. Both goalies, Ilya Samsonov got this start for the Caps. Both goalies played really well and turned away a lot of the chances they did see. And for Samsonov, he turned away all of them. Sammy gets the shutout. That's the big story here. And Garnet Hathaway continues to provide the depth scoring. This guy, usually he's the fourth line guy. Usually he's the grind guy, the penalty kill guy. You're not really looking to this guy every night to score goals, but here he is. He keeps doing it. He keeps scoring goals. He keeps putting up assists. I talked about it with all these guys out. You need these depth guys to really step up, and you need everybody to be pulling on the rope every night. No passengers. Garney has been anything but a passenger in these games. He has been phenomenal. So 2 more goals for him. Just great work overall for Garney, and that defense as well. And we'll talk about that with the Sharks game as well. They did so good, especially late, closing it out, shutting it down. It's what you want to see. You want to see your team late in a game to have a chance to win, and you have to go out there and lock it down. So for the Caps, great job of that. Samsonov gets a shutout. Garnet Hathaway, 2 big goals. It's all good. It is all good. That was a really tough game, and obviously, like I said, I expected them to lose that one. I said, if they're going to lose a game on this trip, it's going to be in LA. But they find a way to get a big win. 2 points, 2 big points, 3 total on the trip to that point, and then we head over to San Jose. Got a couple days off in between, so, hang out a little bit with the boys, some bonding time, getting, acclimated to being on the West Coast. Saturday night in San Jose for the Caps. Still, I guess the big announcement for the Caps coming out early in the day, or fairly early, Nick Dowd, TJ Oshie, very strong possibilities to play, were ultimately game time decisions and did play. So we're getting some of that forward depth back finally. And, obviously, Mantha Backstrom, we don't really know. That's not going to change. Eller, we're kind of unsure at the moment as well, but the boys keep rolling. McMichael, Protas, Janssen Fjallby, all in for this game, of course. And Janssen Fjallby and Protas are a little bit of a surprise. They were kind of in that second wave of call-up forwards for the Caps. Obviously we had McMichael and LaPierre start the season with the Caps, so they were kind of filling spots, and McMichael still is. LaPierre, of course, back in junior. But Brett Leeson was an early call-up for the Caps. They're really high on him, and they still are. So I expected Leeson to stay in, and I expected Protas or Janssen Fialbi to come out. Of course, those guys have been playing really together on that fourth line. But Leeson comes out, Garrett Pillon comes out, Oshie Dowd back in, Protas elevated to the third line center, putting the fourth line, Hagelin, Dowd, Hathaway back together. You put Protas with Sprong and Oshie. I like the look of the team. And we can talk about this, down the road, but with these rookies getting this opportunity, I mean, the Caps have not been historically good at getting their prospects into the fold. And I'll circle back to this. I want to get through this Sharks game first. Another great one for the Caps. Great win all around. Connor Sherry. This guy, I've talked about him a little bit lately, and I have to keep doing it because he keeps finding ways to score big goals. 2 more in this one. Him and Alex Ovechkin, each with 2 goals apiece. Ovi with a power play marker and an empty netter to seal the deal. For the Capitals, another great game. Ilya Samsonov, rewarded for his shutout in LA, gets the start in San Jose, and delivers again. Another shutout. Less shots in this one for him, but that second period, I talked about it before. The second period for the Caps lately has been a bit of a struggle, and they really struggled in this second period. The Sharks had a ton of grade A chances, found a couple goal posts with some shots, but that's part of being a goalie. You rely on your goal posts sometimes, and it bounced for Sammy. And this seems like, is he finally finding his way? We're seeing flashes of what we all hope he is. And now I guess maybe I'm hoping that we're going to start seeing that more consistently. I mean, that's been the big struggle with him so far. He's very good, and he just needs to find a way to maintain it game to game. I did see an interesting stat. In his first 45 starts as a Washington Capital, 35 wins. That's great. I mean, Braden Holtby had 27, if you need a reference. Michael Neuwirth, Jim Carey had 26. So the winningest Caps goaltender all time in his first 45 starts, his road record. They were pulling out great stats on the Gamecast last night for NBC Sports Washington. Is it still NBC Sports Washington? I believe it is, yes. Anyway, Ilya Samsonov is 23-3-2 all time in NHL road games. The guy is lights out on the road. Really good record, of course, better stats, and the biggest stat of all, of course, back-to-back shutouts, but shutouts in 3 of his last 6 starts. So for Ilya, maybe he's turning the corner finally. Maybe he's finding his way and gaining that confidence. I mean, playing goaltending, being a goaltender, especially at this level, is such a mental battle. I mean, you have to be good in your technique. You have to be good in what you're doing and your positioning and all that. There's so many nuances to it. But you have to be good mentally. Like, these guys face so much criticism. You're standing in front of, 100-mile-an-hour projectiles. It takes a different mindset. So for Sammy, I think he's finding his way. And this is really good news because he's the prized prospect. I always talk about, prospects and what it means for the Caps. Ilya Samsonov was a first-round pick. He was the guy. He was the one. They looked and they decided this is our guy that will take the reins after Braden Holtby leaves or retires, whatever their thought process was at the time. He's showing flashes of it. I think if he can maintain this, he will be the Caps starter. But Vanacek, we're going to see him play tonight in Seattle. He may go out and get a shutout. I mean, if both guys are playing great, awesome. I mean, to have, a two-headed monster and to go 50-50, that's great. You'd have to make some decisions come playoff time, but let's cross that bridge when we get there. Caps, great game in San Jose. John Carlson chips in a few points. Kuznetsov, a little bit quiet on this road trip. Had an assist in Anaheim, was held quiet the last 2. But he's still doing all the right things. He's creating scoring chances. He's doing everything he needs to do in the defensive zone. And I think that's the biggest difference I noticed watching this team. Kuznetsov is engaged all over the ice. He's not coasting around. He doesn't look tired. He doesn't look lazy. He looks engaged. He looks focused, and he looks dialed in on the puck and what he needs to do every single night. So for Evgeny, keep her going. For this whole team, guys, keep it going. They've found ways to win games, missing a lot of key players. This is big. This is big for the Caps. I don't think, and kind of circling back to this discussion about having rookies in the lineup and what it means for a team. A team where you have, we saw a bit of it with the Kings and the Ducks. You have veteran experience, but when you can inject that youth into the lineup, it can be such just a shot in the arm for a team, because you're adding these guys who probably are a little bit more energetic and can start to, help take some of the workload from these older guys. We don't need to see Alex Ovechkin play 25 minutes every night. He usually doesn't. But if you can have guys that just reduce his workload by a couple minutes a night, that can be huge for longevity. I mean, we want this team to be performing like this toward the end of the season as well. Not just now and taper off as the season goes along. We've seen that too much these past few seasons. The Caps start really well and just can't maintain it over the course of a season. So having these young guys in the room, in the lineup, it can be huge. They can really, really spark the Caps and add some extra energy to the team. And they're contributing. I mean, Protas has been good. He got his first NHL point in San Jose, got robbed of a goal on a goalie interference call. And McMichael continues to be dangerous. Janssen Fjallby's kind of carved out his place on the third line. So we're seeing young guys really, really push for some spots now. Do I think they're going to, push out Amantha, Backstrom, Eller? Probably not. And, it raises the question, well, what do? We have these guys, these young guys who look like they might be ready to play in the NHL and no room for them. In most cases, that necessitates a trade, or, you let somebody walk at free agency. We're not going to see any midseason trades. With the injury issues this team has had this season, depth is key. And it's going to keep being important for this team. So we're not going to see them suddenly ship out Lars Eller or Anthony Mantha or anything like that. But these young guys are going to make a push. I mean, we don't really know when we're going to see Backstrom. We don't really know when we're going to see Mantha yet. Eller hopefully will be back sooner than later. But for now, these young guys are still going to continue to get opportunities, and every game is a chance to show and prove that they belong. So, what are we looking for moving forward? We're going to see Vanacek get the net in Seattle, in all likelihood. Looking for a win. Seattle has struggled mightily this season. Not very good defensively. Their goalies are statistically the worst in the NHL. Of course, Philip Grubauer, former Cap, former Av now with the Kraken. He's had a tough time. Chris Driedger's had a tough time. We've seen Joey Decord get in a few times. He's struggled. So this team, I think, I talked about it before. Teams didn't fall into the same trap that they did with Vegas and giving up a ton of prospects and picks to hang on to one extra guy. And I think it hurt Seattle a little bit. I think they had to really, really evaluate what they saw. Of course, they left some talent on the table, but that is really not for me to hash out. The Caps. Finish up your road trip strong. Now, you could stumble. You've been on the road for almost a week. Maybe the guys are a little bit homesick. Maybe they're just tired. Road trips are tough. But this is a very winnable game if you're the Washington Capitals. So that's what I'm looking for. It's second half of a back-to-back, but they played really well in San Jose. That third period, they were just kind of able to lock it down. Really didn't play anybody any real hard minutes. So hopefully that really sets the table for them to be successful again tonight. We don't really see too many Sunday night Caps games. When NBC had the rights to the NHL, they were always, Sunday afternoon, Sunday morning games. So kind of weird, honestly. And even Saturdays, too. I mean, they played a lot of afternoon games on Saturdays as well. So to have Saturday night, Sunday night games, it's exciting. It's fun. It's different. I'll be flicking back and forth. My Chargers are finally on a Sunday night NFL broadcast for the first time, and I can't tell you how long. So it's a good night for yours truly. Hopefully both teams can find ways to win hockey and football games. But focusing on the Caps. Need a win in Seattle, and then, boys, you get to head home. Back to Capital One Arena, you're going to see the Montreal Canadiens. They're struggling a little bit, but the schedule is going to pick up from there. You've got the Florida Panthers, the Carolina Hurricanes, and then the Florida Panthers again early next week. So for the Caps, keep going. You're 6-0-1 in their last 7 games, so they're finding ways to win a lot of games. They're finding ways to pick up a lot of points. Keep it going. Just keep it going. This is a great opportunity. Like I always talk about, bank your points. And this is a great opportunity for them to do that. One last thing. This goalie battle, and I talked about it a little bit, it's tough. I mean, every time I say Vanacek, it looks like the guy. Samsonov comes up big. So what are we looking for goalie-wise? Well, I think right now, Samsonov is such a hot hand. Like I said, shutouts in 3 of his last 6. Vanacek needs to have a big game. He doesn't necessarily have to get a shutout, but he has to be good. He has to be the guy. He has to be convincing. Otherwise, this rotation may start to go Ilya's way a little bit more. We've seen Vanacek kind of get, I wouldn't say a big majority of the starts, but I'd say a little more than Samsonov. But as a head coach, especially with a uncertain goalie situation, you got to ride with the hot hand, and the hot hand is Ilya Samsonov right now. So for Vanacek, it's going to be about finding your way again. You haven't really been bad, but you haven't been great in these last couple weeks either. So finding ways to win games, of course. Vitek Vanacek, looking for a big performance from him. Looking for Kuznetsov to get back on the score sheet. He's been doing great things like I talked about. Would be nice to see him get rewarded for his efforts as well. Looking for Hathaway to stay hot. Looking for Shearer to keep it going. Ovi keeps being Ovi. Wilson keeps doing Wilson things. Everything's just really good right now for the Caps, and I'm hoping they can keep it going. We'll see. I will be back with you after the Montreal game. We'll break down 2 more. Until next time, go Caps.